This is a second look, although I honestly cannot remember how I saw this film the first time around. It was definitely released after I lost my vision. I don't know if I saw this without audio description or with audio description, so I have no idea. I honestly cannot remember, but it's on Disney Plus with audio description, and it's British, uh, as most Marvel audio descriptions are. Oddly enough, with at least in my recent memory, Wakanda Forever being a lone exception. I'm really interested to see the newest Ant-Man to see whether or not they stuck with choosing British audio description for for the mass audiences. This is just me taking a second look at Ant-Man and the Wasp before Ant-Man Quantumania hits Disney Plus, presumably in May. It didn't do that well at the box office. I don't know why Avatar hasn't hit Disney Plus. I don't even know where. Like, what are they doing with that? Are they planning on re-releasing it? Is that why it hasn't hit Disney Plus yet? That's the only reason I can think of right now. But then again, who knows? Trying to figure out the reasoning of Disney, but this is a good sequel if you wanted to see more Wasp. Also, if you like Michelle Pfeiffer, because it does bring Michelle Pfeiffer into the world of Marvel to where she can be a recurring character throughout the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So that's good. And Evangeline Lilly does have a quite an expanded role here. She actually gets to fight. She has combat. She actually gets to fight somewhat more than Ant-Man, than Paul Rudd, than Scott Lang. So that definitely puts her character as worthy of being in the title. The fact that, Scott, at least for most of the movie, does not have his Ant-Man suit, puts the Wasp as being the one who has to do most of the cool fighting, the shrinking and the enlarging, and the shrinking and the enlarging. And that's where most of the audio description gets it right, is there's a lot of shrinking and enlarging here. There's a lot of big, small, big, small, big, small, big, small. And it happens quite frequently. It's even more of a gimmick here than it was in the first film. With this film, they're able to enlarge objects. Several times something is thrown and enlarged, and or something that is conceivably you would not think would be able to be shrunk is shrunk down. So there are many times throughout the film where you definitely need to know what just happened, otherwise it doesn't make any sense. Otherwise things just don't make sense. Plus there are action sequences, lots of action sequences in which the audio description nails it. I felt like the audio description was fine and the narrator's voice was fine. I just always think it's funny that Disney picks the British audio description and just goes with it. It's odd. It's like, I know that we live in a global world and films are released internationally. I always kind of wonder if maybe perhaps it's because when they do these films theatrically, that technically they're releasing in the UK maybe slightly ahead of America, so they have to get the audio description done first for UK audiences, and then they just copy it over and figure, well, there's nothing too specific here. They're not calling anything a torch or a boot. So I think we can use this audio description for American audiences, which is true. I mean, there's nothing here that makes this a profoundly British audio description. It's just the narrator has a British accent. So it doesn't necessarily infuse you with British culture and British slang. It just kind of is what it is. It's just a British voice, which is somewhat calming. uh, in many ways. Um, so I enjoyed it. I enjoyed this film a second time around. I enjoy Marvel movies. In when I'm hard on a Marvel movie, it's hard on me. When I really don't like a Marvel movie, run. Because there are only a couple of them that I really truly don't like, that I would put on the please God never show me this again list. Most of the Marvel films are in the that was good to that was great, this is one of my favorite things of all time, like all the way up there. And Ant-Man and the Wasp is somewhere about almost equal to the first one, because even though it finds a way of bringing in a lot of interesting characters, um, it also manages to introduce quite possibly even a less interesting villain, the Yellow Jacket. Yellow Jacket, at least, I don't know, he felt like he was mirroring Obadiah from the Iron Man universe to some extent. So it felt like maybe we'd been here, done that a little bit. I don't know why we have Ghost. I don't know why Ghost is the primary villain here, or feels like the primary villain, I should say, for the majority of the film. And to some extent, Walton Goggins really just feels like he's doing what Andy Serkis was already doing for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So it's not really like I don't think they really came up with anything innovative or cool. And then you have Lawrence Fishburne, who's in this sort of gray area without necessarily being a evil mastermind or somebody with really cool powers, I guess, is in there in the mix. I don't know. It's up to you if you want to include that. Yeah, it just the film's villains just Walton Goggins is somewhat silly, which is exactly what Andy Serkis's character is for the films in which he's represented. I can't even put him to the specific universe because he transcends universes. Unfortunately, we don't have anybody like a Crossbones that works as a secondary villain, and also just is good enough to, isn't trying to be silly. Isn't ramping up the campiness of their character, just is badass. I think somebody like a Crossbones would have worked really well here. Maybe they tried to do that with Ghost, but Ghost isn't really evolved enough as a character due to large amounts of silence from them in order to really bring that home. There are some cool set pieces here. Once again, the expansion of Iron Man, him enlarging himself again is really cool. Plus, this is the film where you have to stay to the end, like the very end, all the way. This is the film that has the Ant-Man growth again, but it also has, at the end, it explains where Ant-Man was for Infinity War. And also sets up like a lot of other things. I mean, that honestly, the end credit sequence here is probably more important than the entire movie. But if you're looking at it from Marvel Cinematic Universe perspective, because most of the movie is really specific to the Ant-Man universe, whereas the rest of it is specific. The little tag at the end is specific to the entire Avengers world. It was good to see the crew back. I actually forgot they were all there. For some reason, I just remembered Michael Pena, who does have a more increased role than the rest of the crew. I think everybody's back. At least I could tell. They just have less to do individually than they did in the first film. I remember rewatching the first film recently and thinking to myself, did they actually come back for the sequel? Because all I remember is Michael Pena. And, oh yeah, they're there. They don't do a lot, but from what I could tell, they're there. So, And that's about it. I mean, they do some cool things with like enlarging an ant to replace Scott, and some of the other characters from the first film reappear. Like, Scott's family is in this, and everybody's around. Michael Douglas does a good job. He shows up, and he seems to be having fun being in a superhero film, so that's good. Michelle Pfeiffer shows up, does a good job. One of my favorite scenes in the film has to be the scene where Michelle Pfeiffer takes over Paul Rudd's body and has the conversations with Michael Douglas and Evangeline Lilly, and like they both know that it's her character, but it looks like Paul Rudd, it looks like Scott Lang, so it's Paul Rudd saying these things. And they're reacting to it like it would be Michelle Pfeiffer, essentially. I just find that scene to be really funny and also oddly heartfelt at the same time. But I like this movie. I've seen it twice now. I don't think, I haven't seen this a second time yet, so this is actually a true second look. Sometimes I call it a second look and it's like a 27th look or something, but this is actually a second look. I really don't remember if I saw this the first time with audio description or not. I don't remember if I saw this on Disney Plus. If I rented it, I have no idea. None. I cannot remember if I watched this the first time with audio description or not. For some reason, I feel like I had a pretty good understanding of the film, of the shrinking and how buildings were, grow and shrink, and the fact that I knew those details, I'm like, how would I have known this stuff without audio description? Just none of that stuff would have made any sense to me. This is definitely a film where, without audio description, and I would probably have called it unwatchable, or at least pointless. Because if you don't know when things are growing and enlarging, then what's the point? I mean, that's the whole gimmick of this universe. So, yeah. Anyway, I think it's a strong movie. Maybe I'm out on a limb on this one. Maybe a lot of people don't like Ant-Man and the Wasp, and I know less people like the Ant-Man films. I'm still very much like, I would love to know the alternate versions. I'd love to know what Edgar Wright was going to do with this franchise, just because I think he's a fantastic director. And it's one of those things where it's just, I can't imagine. Like, I don't know. I want to know more about why not Edgar Wright? Like, what was so bad about Edgar Wright that Disney was like, no, sorry, we don't need you and your stylized awesomeness. How could he have possibly been making this Ant-Man film bad, universe? Anyway, I'm gonna give Ant-Man and the Wasp a B+. So, I think the film has pretty solid audio description, and I hope you do too. So thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I also have a website, MacTheMovieGuy.com. You can follow me on Instagram or Twitter at MacTheMovieGuy. You can go to the audio description project, adp.acb.org. It'll let you know what has this audio description where you can watch it. And the ADNA.org will let you know who's describing your favorite films and television series. That's it for me today. I will review something else for you guys, and see you on the other side.